Jonathan here, I know I'm putting you on the spot. Jonathan is a dear brother in our church, and he's a successful businessman, but he's got a great story of how old were you when you found Jesus? 18. All right, turn him up, good and loud. Yeah, he was 18 years old at Pastor Tim Bagwell's church in Denver, Colorado. I want you to share your testimony real quick. Yellow mic, turn him up.
All right, we'll do a little bit of a condensed version. So 18 years old, selling drugs in the streets, wrapped up in some organized crime stuff. And I'm dating a girl whose family are Christians. I'm not a believer. And her sister was dying of bone cancer. I believe at this time she was about 5 years old. And they found a bone marrow transplant that they said was a 50-50 chance that would give her an opportunity to live. But the only place that they could get it in her body quick enough, because it was coming, I believe, from Europe, was to get her to Washington. It would have, I think, if they would have tried to bring it to Denver, where we were currently at this time, the bone marrow wouldn't have been any good. So they put this little girl on a plane. They get her to Seattle, and she goes into surgery. Surgery's completed, not making it, getting ready to die. A pastor from Lone Tree, Colorado, which you guys that have been here for a while probably know, Pastor Tim Bagwell, happened to be in the same hospital in Seattle that night for a different purpose for God. He's walking out of the hospital, it's late at night, and he begins to walk by the little girl that's dying's room. Power of God hits him, tells him to go in there and pray for her. He goes inside, prays for the little girl. Little girl is still alive today. Teenager today. So the parents of the little girl witnessed the miraculous intervention of God. And they say, "Where are you from?" They had no idea that he was also from the Colorado, Denver area, Lone Tree area. He says, "Well, I have a church called Word of Life on Dry Creek and Clarkson." They said, "We'll be there." So I get a phone call from my girlfriend. She flies out there to celebrate, and because her baby sister's still alive. And she calls me and she says, "Hey, I know you don't believe in God, but this is what just happened. Will you come to this church? Please, please do this one thing for me. I've never really asked you for much." And I didn't want to go. No intentions of going. And I sat on it for a little bit, and in my disbelief of God, I still knew that little girl was dying. I was watching her die. She had no hair. She was bald from the treatment. She had bags under her eyes when they put her on that plane. And I was physically watching her mortal body die. And now she was alive. So I said, okay, I'm going to check this out. Didn't want to get up in the morning, so I went to a night service. I believe it started around 6 o'clock. I got there late. And when I walked in, service was wrapping up, and there's people speaking in tongues and falling over at the front. And I'm like, what the heck am I doing here? I'm like, this is crazy. Before I'd walked in the door, I took the gun out of my waistband. I put it under the seat of my Eldorado Cadillac. I walked inside, khaki pants on, rag hanging out, red hat, red shoes, red shirt, sit down in the very back. And I'm thinking, man, I can't wait till this service gets over and I'm out of here. The pastor's wrapping up the service, and he says, "Hey, you." And I'm looking around. He's like, "Hey, you in the back, I got to pray for you." I start walking towards the front, taking my time, rebellious attitude and all, just like all of us teenagers, getting ready to get touched by God. He says, "Hey," I'm halfway down the aisle already at this point, "if you think people are up here taking courtesy drops, go home." And I'm like, who does this guy think he is? I'm walking up there to him. He reads my mail. lays his hand on me. Power of God hits me. I wake up on the floor crying. They have to set me on the pew. By the time I'm fully coherent again, I didn't know what exactly had gone on. But I knew that this Christ they were talking about was real. And I'll tell you this. And sorry, it's an emotional story for me, because it wasn't in that moment in time that my entire life changed. It was at that moment in time that the process of change started. See, sometimes we feel like when we go to Jesus, immediately everything is going to get better. Because I was that guy throughout my walk with Christ when I was wondering why people would get set free immediately. And I had to battle for things, because peace can be negotiated, but freedom has to be fought for. And what happened is Christ gave me the freedom because he gave me the power and the unction to begin to fight for things that I could not do in my own strength. And then when I began to realize that he was doing it for me, then the chains began to break off of me. And I stopped living a mirage of pretending that I lived for God and started to walk in obedience with God. And then my life would begin to change other lives because of the power and the anointing of Christ that was on my life, not because of anything that I did in my own strength. So when you're in your school and you're in this generation and everything else is telling you it's okay to do this and it's okay to do that, and we're dancing around trying to make things fit in the world, you'll begin to realize that Christ was the biggest rebel that ever walked the face of the earth. If you want to be busy being a rebel, then end up being like Christ. And instead of being like the people that are next to you, the power on your life will change your life as it's changing the people around you. Because everybody's waiting for some kid or some young teenager, a young adult that has it all put together to come out and make some change in a perilous world right now. But nobody realizes in the moment that it's going to be each and every one of you coming out of the prayer closet. It doesn't need to be a knight in shining armor that will radically impact your generation. So I can tell you this, Christ is real. And if he can do it in me, then he's going to do it in every single one of you.